times. Hotels. Life is art.
So you know what they say, right? Someday is no day. Today is Monday, and it is the day that you dress up, get up, and show up, starting by making Channels Television your companion, especially with the morning brief, your perfect day starter. I am Bukola Koka, and we come with girl power this morning with Anne.
Good morning, Nigerians. Good morning, everyone watching around the world. It is the morning brief, and Kayode is blessed to be among women today. But before we begin, we sincerely apologize. I mean, someone just asked me, were you stuck in traffic? No, we're not stuck in traffic. We just had a little technical problem, but we're here, and we're here to start the show on this Monday, beautiful Monday morning. And to all those who resumed Salah, God is watching you guys on 3D. But anyway, Kayode.
Absolutely, we're live for you in Lagos, Nigeria's commercial capital. Welcome to the morning brief. Yes, Anne joins us today, so you can just imagine. It's going to be a ride. So let's get started, shall we?
Yes, indeed, Kadi. I was just reflecting over the weekend how 3 pieces of tomatoes are 1,000 naira, even when you decide to add carrots, and which is my own heat recipe, just to boost and give you some volume. It hardly gets you anywhere, you know, and price of commodities increasing every other day. You know, what you get it the day before is not what you get it the next time you go shopping. And amid all of that, you know, the urgency and sensitivity with which the federal government is working on the minimum wage bill is quite commendable. And, you know, I couldn't help but make that observation and ask you what your expectations are. Can't you see the speed, Anne? Kayode?
Okay, so we're starting Monday on a note of sarcasm. And I think Bukola has a huge dose of it. I think you packed a lot from over the weekend. And I see the point you're making. Because a lot of people thought the president gave the speech on June the 12th, actually saying that he's going to pass the amendment to the National Assembly. And this is June the 24th, 12 days. Well, 2 days of public holiday, but we've seen what the government can do even on public holidays when they really want to do so.
Right?
So the question is, what is going on with that minimum wage bill? That is the point Bukola is trying to make, just in case you don't speak sarcasm this morning.
Also, sarcasm is a language.
Oh, it is.
Okay, I get it.
It is a language, so that's what we're starting Monday with. Anyway, I'm sure a lot of people will be expecting it's a new week, so let's be hopeful that something will happen. I mean, Kayode just said it's the 24th.
Yeah.
We hope that something is done for, this week at least, because a lot of people are involved in this. All parties are hoping that this happens as soon as possible, at least so that they know the way forward. I mean, lots of deliberations here and there, news from different angles. People are not agreeing, but we need to have a definite answer. What is going to happen going forward so that at least people can still negotiate if they have to, or if this is how it's going to go, how do we adjust to make sure that everyone is happy?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, important point you're making there, and you know, just in case the president makes an announcement that is not quite, you know, in line with what Labour would really want, what would be the implications of that? Are we, you know, going on another round of negotiations, perhaps maybe a nationwide strike, you know, called by Labour to protest government's position? And, you know, there are very, very little expectations in that regard, considering the, you know, piecemeal additions that the federal government has been offering so far, you know. So, Kayode,
I don't know if it's a big one. So we're counting down, or this is counting up 12 days since the president made the announcement. Something needs to be done. Let us know what is going on. Absolutely. And I don't know if we need some sort of negotiation for this point I want to quickly make. Is the fact that it looks like a lot of ATMs don't have cash in them anymore. So ATMs look like relics at this point. So you'd rather go to the POS point where you, of course, know you have to add some amounts just to get the money So what is going on with the ATMs? We need to decide what we want to do with ATMs. Do we want to make them like the old telephone booths?
In London.
Just a relic, just there.
Yeah.
We know that, there was a time in our life when we had ATMs, or we want to make them work, because increasingly you approach ATMs and please enter your whatever, your PIN, and then it tells you insufficient or no cash or whatever.
Or temporarily unable to dispense funds, which is the language permanently that ATMs speak now.
So what's going on?
I mean, there are lots of problems. Bukola talked about the tomato pepper issue we know a lot of people are going through right now. But let me give you another info. Apart from carrots, you can also use cucumber to cook. So add it to make... Kayode is laughing.
Because I saw a video and I'm like, how did we get here?
How did we get here? But I mean, you have to survive, right?
Well, Kayode, I can't help but, add something to that commentary about ATMs. We need the CBN. The CBN is a bank regulator, and we need the central bank to speak up on this. Is this, deliberate? Are the banks in cahoots with POS operators? Because we now have a second exchange rate where we have to pay 200 naira for 10,000 naira and 400 naira for 20,000 naira. Now I'm paying to get my own cash. So we must decide what we really want to do. Is this, by any way going to also encourage inclusion in the banking sector? So what's happening to all of the cash? And it appears as if the financial sector has not been the same again since that, cash
of the naira,
the redesign policy.
Redesign policy.
Okay.
Things have really never been the same again since that time.
So lots to chew on, but we have a package for you on the show this morning. How about we just unravel them, Bukola?
Yes, indeed. Starting with, repeated assurances from the National Identity Card Management Agency that its servers had not been breached. Regardless of that, we have, a report from a digital financial organization, technical organization, that, unauthorized third-party access to Nigeria's personal information has again happened. And the Paradigm Initiative says it has uncovered several unauthorized websites which are claiming to hold and provide access to sensitive personal and financial data of Nigerian citizens. Listen to it, for as little as 100 naira. This matter gets our attention this morning.
Oh, well, Bukola, that's ridiculous. But let's turn our attention to keeping tabs on the cholera outbreak in Nigeria, especially in the wake of the disclosure by the Nigeria Center for Disease Control that the country does not have enough vaccines. What does this mean for the public health sector, and how can you protect yourself and help check the spread? Well, we'll find out on the show today.
Add to that all of the trending topics. Don't worry, we're not losing sight of any of them. But on a final note on the show this morning, this man is not your regular Nigerian by all means. Neither is he your regular comedian. He combines his often slapstick humor merchandise with an amazing knowledge base of a variety of issues. Indeed, the beautiful ones are already with us, and Randy Aka is one of them. He joins us on the show today. We're taking him off social media to join us in our studio, and he tells us his amazing story.
Indeed, I'm looking forward to that already. Don't forget to add to that your comments. You are the third or the fourth member of this incredible panel.
Yes,
so we're waiting to hear from you. So start texting us already on Facebook, X, Instagram. Share your thoughts with us. #CTV Morning Brief. Of course, we also are expecting your videos. We'll authenticate them and help amplify your voices. What are those challenges in your community, in your locality? Send them to us, and then we'll amplify your voices. Yes, of course, that's the WhatsApp number that you can reach us on, that you can reach Anne on.
Why are you calling Bukola? That you can reach Bukola on, not me.
Well, all of us.
Let us know if the ATM in your house.
Kayode is going to settle a lot of fights today on the show.
I will. I'm ready for it.
All right, so in a few seconds, it'll be time for top stories on the morning brief. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Now, the weekend rounded off on something of a mixed bag with some wins and losses. Starting with the wins, the war on illegal refining of petroleum products, which recorded another victory as the air component of the Operation Delta Safe destroyed 13 illegal refining sites and some other assets used in dispersing honed crude oil products from surface tanks. The sites were discovered near Imo River, where 7 overhead tanks were sighted. According to the Air Force airstrikes was also extended to Wilcourt in River State after a canoe filled with illegally refined products and some gunboats were discovered. Also following some intelligence report, the Air Force component also destroyed illegal oil assets in Bayelsa State. And more on security, the Comptroller General of Immigration, Mrs. Kemi Nandap, has charged border officers to be professional and extra vigilant in manning the country's borders. She gave the charge when she visited some of the border communities in Katsina and Jigawa states, where she also solicited the support of stakeholders in combating trans-border crimes.
The essence of this trip is to make sure that everything is on ground. Our officers are well motivated. If they have any challenges, what are the challenges? And see how we can come in and make sure that we mitigate such things. And also to make sure that the borders are safe from things like trans-border crime and other unnecessary crimes that we have in the country right now. So to make sure that the border is safe from all interference in terms of unwanted people. But what we have seen so far is it still needs, it needs a lot of work to be done. It needs a lot of work to be done. And that is the essence of this trip, to go back to the drawing board and to strategize and see how best we can liaise with the federal government to make sure that what we need here now is proper border governance. And I will tell you that the ministry, in conjunction, of course, with NIS, we're now deploying e-border solutions. And this is one of it that you have here now, sorry. This is what we have, and this is what is on ground. And what that does for us is intelligence gathering, and which helps us to monitor the border better in terms of intelligence gathering. And the security of our borders will be done properly in terms of, when we have proper intelligence. We know who's coming in, we know who's going out. Our borders will be secure. And our men are ready, they're well trained, they're well motivated, and we're doing our job, and we'll definitely succeed. We'll make sure that the borders are safe. That is our job.
And that's the expectation. More on security yet. The coalition of northern groups in Zamfara State has condemned the increasing violent attacks and kidnappings in the state, particularly the recent kidnap of a Catholic priest. Speaking with Channels Television's correspondent in Gusau, the state capital, the state coordinator of the group, Mr. Hussaini Hassan, advised the authorities to take immediate steps against these acts and make the state safe for citizens.
Was so alarming because it has been a barbaric situation we find ourselves in Zamfara State in general, because a lot of insecurity is taking place all over the state. So I think one of the recent happening within the month, or I can say within 2 months, is that many people have been kidnapped at Mariri, and also last month one of the manager from Taj Bank was being kidnapped. Even also he's been released. But I think it's a situation whereby we find ourselves as a terrible moment. Recently today, as I heard, when I'm coming back from the community, I heard that one Reverend Father was being kidnapped at Dampa in Gusau, LGA, close by the state city capital where we are today. But I think this is a terrible moment because it's a situation whereby we don't know what is going to happen tomorrow. If a lot of incidents is happening within the Gusau metropolitan city, now it's coming down to the city itself, where there's a lot of security situation close by, which we think we need to have a protective measure because of the security around the locations. But this situation has been increasing day by day, time by time. So what we expect from the government is to put more effort and providing security of life and properties of the citizens, because this is going to be so alarming because it's increasing.
Family and loved ones of a final year student of the University of Benin, Glory Adekolure, who was allegedly raped and murdered by yet to be identified persons, have called on the authorities to bring the perpetrators to book. They are seeking answers after her lifeless body was reportedly dumped on a street near her home in Iowa community in Edo State about a week ago. Various accounts explain that she had gone to school to submit her project in the morning of June the 13th, but never returned home.
This is our first graduate, and he's our last born. Me, I went to school, but it was OND. I could not finish up. You understand? My mother stood for us to fight for us. It was this last born because my mother is a type who like education.
22 years old girl. Passing to pain before he died. Now project he go submit. Your nice they submit. He then you the submit projects is 1 week. Nigerian as a whole. Tinubu president. Oba of Benin. Oba Sekin. Commissioner of Police, I beg you people, I need justice, let justice come out.
And moving further down south, it was an unusual Sunday for Christ Embassy Church as its headquarters on Billings Way in Oregun, Lagos, was gutted by fire in the early hours of the day. The church complex which was enveloped by smoke, was eventually put out by men of the fire service and other safety agencies. The Director General of the Lagos State Emergency Management Agency, Mr. Femi Okeosonyitolu, who confirmed that no life was lost in the incident, however says preliminary investigation will continue to determine the cause of the fire.
We're moving in there with all the key stakeholders that are important in managing emergency in the state. And you can see that we've curtailed the spread of the fire. We've put up the fire in certain aspects, and we've started conducting what we call secondary survey in emergency. And very soon, everything will be completed in terms of operation. We have to do a sort of investigations because we have to look at things holistically before we could say this is the etiology that leads to this. But the most important thing is that we have curtailed the fire. We will soon put up the fire, and we started looking at the secondary challenges, and I'm sure we are going to be on top of it. There is no mortality, there is no morbidity, and you can see that the recovery aspect of it is seamless. The response time was 10 minutes, and by 10 minutes, all the actors were on the ground. So when it occurred and they inform us, we move in there.
Well, thankfully, no life was lost in that incident. And to business now. On a cheery note, Nigeria's foreign reserves just got a boost of $5 million. And that's thanks to the federal government's National Gold Purchase Program, which has recorded its first commercial transaction. This was disclosed in a statement by the Minister of Solid Mineral Development, Mr. Dele Alake, after he presented the latest refined gold bar to President Bola Tinubu at the Presidential Villa in Abuja. Mr. Alake further notes that the over 70 kilograms of gold refined to accompany the United States adds about 6 billion naira into the nation's economy. The minister asserts that the successful transaction underscores the huge potential of the solid mineral sector, which has in revaluing the Nigeria currency, as well as enhancing fiscal and monetary stability. And outside our shores, at least 1,301 people have so far died during the Hajj in Saudi Arabia, most of whom were unauthorized pilgrims who walked long distances in intense heat. This year's pilgrimage took place during a heat wave with temperatures at times exceeding 50 degrees Celsius. The official Saudi news agency, SPA, reports that more than 3/4 of those who died did not have official permits to be there and walked under direct sunlight without adequate shelter. The agency adds that some of those who died were elderly or chronically ill. Saudi Arabia has been criticized for not doing more to make the Hajj safer, especially for unregistered pilgrims who have no access to facilities such as air-conditioned tents and official Hajj transport. And in sports news, it's a big one for Enugu Rangers. They were crowned NPFL champions in style after they beat host Gombe United 2-1 to finish top of the standings on 70 points from 38 matches. The Flying Antelopes recorded a stunning away win in Gombe to round off an impressive season with their 8th league title. Former MFM FC coach Fidelis Ilechukwu led the team to the title glory after finishing second with the Olukoya boys in 2017. Enugu Rangers will represent Nigeria in the CAF Champions League alongside Remo Stars, who finished second on the log with 65 points following a 2-1 win over Katsina United in Ikenne on Sunday. Congratulations to Enugu Rangers. And I wonder if that's your club, well, as far as the MPFL is concerned. Let us know as we also start off a review of some of your reactions to the major talking points. Kennedy joins me now to do just that.
I guess that you want to ask me, it's Enugu Rangers. I saw that coming, so let me just get ahead and answer. Well, I have two clubs at the MPFL.
Okay.
3SC and Remo Stars. Thankfully, Remo Stars came second. 3SC, well, they did well, but not as well as I expected. So there goes the answer to your question.
Okay. Well, so I just have a favorite by name, Heartland of Owerri. I like the way they call it Heartland of Owerri. I don't know anything else about how they perform, by the way.
You don't like the Eyimba?
Eyimba. Yeah, by the name also.
There you go.
They're all my favorites.
So let's get into what's big, what's trended. It was a busy week. And I mean, there were some spots that didn't quite come out well. And I think top on that list was a fire that got to Christ Embassy here in Lagos. A huge fire. It was shocking. I mean, look at this. Still questions about what caused the fire. You may have heard.
This is big.
Yeah, the Lagos officials saying they're trying to find out what caused this huge fire yesterday. And look at it.
Thick black smoke, you know, and billowing into the air.
So let's take a look at what Nigerians have to say about this one. And we begin with Simon Akor 15 on X. It's very shocking, understandably. And this user says, what could have started a huge fire like this? Took the question right out of our mouths. Hope no one is involved. And this user says, my hearts and prayers are with Christ Embassy Church. We understand that so far there's been no casualties. So thankfully, that will answer your question. But the property destroyed, we still have a bit of cost to it and the cause as well. So we'll get to find out in the coming days.
Yeah, we really need to know what caused such a huge fire. This one is from Anthony Samuel Ikojo, who says, I hope there are no casualties. Yes, we can report that no life was lost, thankfully. And he continues by saying, my heart goes out to the Christ Embassy family. God will rebuild his church. Amen.
And I understand that Pastor Chris had said, well, they will come out bigger and better from this. First, it was Household of David. You recall Household of David some months back. It was a huge fire, literally consumed the church, now Christ Embassy. Well, take a look at this next user. And this is from Efemena. Says the fire is quite a lot. Seriously raging. What would have caused an outbreak of this magnitude? So the cause is a consistent thing. The fire has been put out, of course, as we've heard, and it took a lot of work from emergency responders. Trucks upon trucks coming in, just empty their content. That's what we have.
And we're also grateful for quick response from the emergency agency to put out the fire. Do we have more time for this talking point, or we go straight to the next one?
Well, let's just move on to the next one.
Which is on NDLEA bursting a snake-guarded shrine in Edo State where illicit drugs were stored. Interesting one. Mysterious, if you ask me. And the first reaction is from Madam President, retired. And she says, I hope NDLEA arrested the snake. Oh, the secrets that snake would reveal in detention. So there's a lot of sarcasm this Monday morning.
Because we've had our fair share of reportings around animals, snakes. I think
swallowing money at jam.
The monkeys at some point?
Yeah, monkeys.
So yeah, that's where this particular comment is coming from. It's quite interesting. But a lot of people have been commending the NDLEA. Edeno_Bernard also says, well done to the NDLEA for the work being done here. It looks like a weekend thing. Every weekend, you always expect somebody to come out of the NDLEA as a recent bust and the rest. And people have asked, what happens to what is taken afterwards? That's been a huge question. I think the NDLEA has tried to answer that question, but you understand those questions keep coming in, particularly when they see new busts being made.
Interesting. Maybe the next one we're going to burst would be a shrine guarded by an elephant, and maybe the drugs are stored inside the elephant. You know, there's nothing that,
not recovered from the sarcasm. This is Monday sarcasm there.
All right, so this next one is from Mayowa, who says, the NDLE officers deserve high praise for their diligent work and successful operation.
There you go. So, kudos to the NDLE, at least from these users. But let's move on to something that the president is said to have ordered recently. And that shocked a lot of people. And the fact that President Tinubu ordered immediate sanctions for civil servants collecting, now listen to this, salaries after relocating abroad. So this is what it means. People relocated abroad and they didn't sever the ties to the payroll of Nigeria. So they are eating their cake and having it. It is shocking. It is mind-boggling. That is theft. That is corruption. The list goes on and on. But take a look at what
Those workers with their physical bodies abroad.
Come on. I am Chimamadi has the first one. Says if they are fully delivering their job responsibilities and have not violated their terms of contract, then it should not be a problem. But if otherwise, sanction is appropriate. I think this order is quite clear. Those who have left the country and no more meant to be, they're not working for the civil service. I think that is what the order is about. But it's more to make that clarification.
And there is more to it than meets the eye, Kadi. This has to be investigated, up to the leadership of such ministries that may be found wanting here, because it speaks to the possible fact that, it was an unceremonious exit for these category of workers, and it couldn't have been done without the help of, some bosses, some line managers. So are they complicit in this as well?
If you're out, you're out. If you're in, you're in. Allow others to get that position. So can you actually be doing the job from outside the country? They'll say, well, work from home. But does the civil service have the infrastructure to really work from home? Well, take a look at what Emmanuel, okay, you took that. Demilade_XN is next, saying, shouldn't there be a system whereby civil servants who are not working aren't collecting pay? Is that too hard? This user asks.
Valid question. This next one is from at Friedrich Adewa 1, who says the federal government should not only sanction them, but get them arrested for theft and conspiracy. It's quite disheartening. Why would someone relocate abroad and still be on the federal government's payroll?
So, the civil service is in focus this morning because the next trend also speaks to that. And this is from the head of service, who says that HND holders from Polytechnics should undergo 1-year mandatory training if they will move from the executive to the officer cadre. Those were her words that Folashade Yemi imagine. Take a look at what Nigerians have been saying to that, because there are a lot of HND holders, right? By the way, you start from OND to HND, and then you follow the process before you serve, and then you get employed. So this first user, Success IBN, says, in the Polytechnic, you do CWES after your 1-year OND, and then IT after the completion of OND, then NYC after HND. So what if the training is expected again? This user is asking.
I just wonder if it's not too much, discrimination and burdensomeness, put on, graduates of polytechnics. First of all, they have to do CWES, and then they're discriminated against. Some organizations would not employ graduates of polytechnics. And then if they want to do masters, I believe there's been an experience of a colleague in the past who was required to first have a Bachelor of Arts degree before they could qualify to do masters. So adding another 1 year pressure to what they have to experience again, I just wonder.
We need clarification on that one. So just one more before we wind up.
Yes, and this one is from Ibn Success, who says okay, you've taken that. This one's from Ike Chuku Kinsley, who says 2 years of OND, 1 year of industrial training, 2 years of HND, 1 year mandatory training, 1 year NYSC. That's 7 years. If a man spends 7 years trying to acquire HND, how many years left for him?
There you have it. Let's anchor at this point for now, at least.
Yes, of course. This by no means is the last of this conversation. Perhaps we'll be exploring it in the coming days. But after this time out, we'll kickstart the program, and by looking at this security or otherwise of your personal information with the custodian, the NIMC. It's an important conversation, and you'll profit from it. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Of course, it's still the morning brief right here on Channels Television. Now, last week, a report came out, a shocking one indeed, a revelation by Paradigm Initiative finding out that several unauthorized websites were claiming to hold and provide access and sensitive personal and financial data of Nigerian citizens, some for as little as 100 naira, which shocked a lot of Nigerians. I mean, previously something like that had come out, but I don't know how that went. And this one has been responded to. I mean, the NIMC has responded to this, telling Nigerians that, oh, this is, there's no data from the NIMC website giving to any unauthorized person or organization. So on the show today, we'll be talking to Adeboye Adegoke, who's the Senior Manager, Grants and Program Strategy Paradigm Initiative. And the discussion, of course, will be on data protection for Nigerians, the findings by Paradigm Initiative on the alleged site giving out personal data for a fee as little as 100 naira. Hello, Mr. Adeboye Adegoke. Thank you for joining us on the morning brief.
Good morning.
So tell us.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. Let's begin by finding out how exactly this came to be, finding and giving data out to unauthorized persons. What did your findings get?
All right, thank you very much. When it comes to giving out data, you know that historically Nigerians have been asked many times to provide data by a lot of government institutions. So you're looking at NIMC, for example, for our NIN. You're looking at CBN for our bank verification numbers. You're looking at the immigration for passports, INEC for PVCs, and you can go on and on and on. So there have been that data mining exercise that has been carried out by several Nigerian government agencies for different reasons. So that is on one part. On the other part is that as an organization, Paradigm Initiative has been at the forefront of, interrogating the security of those data and also what government is doing in terms of ensuring that there is adequate safeguards protection around some of these data that are now being held by multiple government agencies. In the early days of the government of the immediate past President Buhari, he did make a policy statement demanding that there should be some harmonization of those data in order to, limit the proliferation of this data and all of that. But to fast forward to the recent discovery about which was trending, late last week on social media, is that a few months ago there was a discovery of a website called Express Verify. This website was offering to provide access to the NIN data, that is the national identity number and the virtual NIN, for a fee. And it was one online newspaper that exposed that. I did an investigative work around that, Hajj specifically. And in response to that, we reached out to the relevant government stakeholders to say that what are you doing about this issue? How are you ensuring that anyone found culpable or responsible for this are held accountable? And we were assured at the time by the Nigerian Data Protection Commission that they were investigating the issue, and they were as well even investigating other entities offering the same service. And barely 2 months after, we discovered on our own through research that there is another entity, in this case, AnyVerify. That's the name of the entity, AnyVerify, that offers to sell not just NIN data, PVC data, BVN data, even immigration data, for anybody, anyone whosoever that is interested in having this data. You can pay 100 naira to access this data. And in order not to come, to the public with unverified information, we decided to carry out an experiment. So we delegated some entity to try and go to those websites and try to, assess this data as has been advertised. And to our, we were shocked to find out that all you need to do is to provide a phone number and to pay that 100 naira. And if you need the NIN of any entity in Nigeria, whoever it is, it will not just give you the person's NIN, it will give you the person's NIN slip. So what we saw that you can get an entire NIN slip, and on that NIN slip, what are the information that are there? You have the national identity number, you have the virtual
identity number, you have the home address of the fellow, you also have their picture, their full name. Now, why this is also interesting is that we also deliberately limited our search to public official because we are also trying to avoid putting information of, private Nigerians out there. So what we discovered is that even the Data Protection Commissioner for Nigeria, his name slip was available for 100 naira. The Minister for Communication and Digital Innovation, his name was available for 100 naira, and we demonstrated this to the press just last week. So we are not just saying something that we have not thoroughly investigated, and that was really shocking. It was really shocking for us. And maybe before I come back to you, let me quickly mention the fact that we have also seen the response by the National Identity Management Commission assuring Nigeria that their data are secured and all of that. And for me, I think that was very disappointing. It doesn't demonstrate a level of responsibility required from an institution like that when an issue like this has come to the public, because that statement did not in any way address the issue that has been, brought to the fore. But I hope that they will take it more seriously, because we have not even shared all the information we have. And by the time we do, we realize that we need to do more to protect data in Nigeria.
Well, I was going to ask you about that NIMS's reply, because they have already said, they didn't give any institution and authority to use data from anyone. But does it stop at that? Should it stop at that? And if it shouldn't, what should they be doing? What is the necessary step, the immediate step that NIMC should be taking at this time?
All right. So the first thing I'm going to say is that statement, or the claim that they did not give data to any entity, unfortunately, I hate to say this, but it's not true. It's a lie. And I'm happy to provide further evidence when necessary. However, what I had expected from NIMC when this kind of issue came up was that they should have taken their time to investigate, do some soul searching internally to understand why this is coming from. Because even for us that are external stakeholders, we've done a lot of research. We have established a link between these people selling this data and National Identity Management Commission. So seeing that statement, it was very disappointing, because we do understand, because this exercise is not about NIMC. The work we are doing is not just about NIMC. It's about the data governance ecosystem generally in Nigeria. So it's not about making an organization or an institution look bad. It's about protecting the data and the privacy rights of Nigeria. So NIMC coming out to save face, or just because they want to look good, it is not helping the conversation. It's also showing that they are not taking responsibility and they are not doing what they are supposed to do. You had asked the question, what should they be doing? For example, they should have properly investigated the issue and see if there is potentially a link between them and this entity, because we have been able to, without doubt, identify that there is actually a link between NIMC and this entity, but we'll get to that later. Now, if they had done that, maybe that statement they put out, they will have probably rethink it before they do that. What I would have said them to do is to promise Nigeria that they are going to, investigate the issue and bring culprits to book, whether it is an internal culprit or an external culprit. Because what we have found out, there is no way those people have those data without an internal collaborator, either officially or unofficially. There is an internal collaborator, because as a matter of fact, what we have found out is even not an official collaboration. What we have found out is not an unofficial collaboration. What we have found out is actually an official collaboration between NIMC and this entity. So it's surprising that it came out to deny it. And we're happy to prove that there is actually a link between NIMC and these entities.
Well, Mr. Adeboye, interesting. And, that was where I was headed. But you just took it straight out of my mind, because despite NIMS's repeated assurances that Nigerians' data have not been compromised, we're seeing this yet again, and the story is as old as about 3 months old now. Now, is it possible that this data breach is also as a result of what is being reported as an undersea cable cut that has also led to, a shutdown or a breakdown of the systems of communications agencies? And by the way, I have visited anyverify.com, but the website is not loading. I wonder if you've made that observation in recent times. Has that happened only in the last 24 hours as a result of your investigation?
Absolutely. So let me start from the cable cut. There is definitely no link between the cable cuts and the data breach we are discussing. It has no link at all. However, checking the website, we are aware since Saturday actually, that the website is no longer loading, and we are not surprised because the first breach that was reported by Fitch, immediately the news came into the public. That was the same thing that happened. The website was taken down. That was the one with the expert verify. So one of the things we did in this investigation is that before we came public with it, we knew that they were going to take the website down once the issue becomes public. So we have already archived the website. So there is no hiding. Wow. We have archived the website as evidence that website existed, because if anybody tries to go to that website now, they will not find it because they will try to hide their track. But it's also very important to say that the way this kind of data breach or this monumental level of breach could have happened is because, number one, not just NIMSI. I don't want us to narrow this conversation to NIMSI, but I guess because NIMSI has been the only organization that has officially responded, so they have to come up a lot. But before we can have that kind of data breach, it must have been that either somebody internally has made those data available or someone externally gain access to those data. But I don't think that is the case. From our own find, this is what we found out. Now, NIMSI has licensees, people that they have licensed to provide certain services using some data that NIMSI has. So some of those services are verification services. So for example, you want to hire a housemaid, you want to hire a driver. So one of the things that people do these days is that before you hire a stranger into your home, you want to verify their identity. So there are identity verification services, and those who provide those services are ideally supposed to be licensed by NIMSI. So that's the first layer. Now, within that architecture, a lot of things could go wrong. It could go wrong in the sense that if the licensee, for example, are not subjected to certain standards of practices that ensures that they are limited to the services they are supposed to provide to the public. If also there are no certain standards around what information they should be making available to people who come to maybe verify information about their new recruits, their new employee, there might also be a leak that will come out of that. As I was saying earlier, we found a link between this entity and NIMSI, for example. So our suspicion is that either this leak happened because the entity did not meet certain requirements or has not operated at the highest level of standard that is expected of them, or maybe NIMSI themselves have not really created a strong system of accountability, of safeguards or standard setting that ensure that those that they have licensed are operating at the highest level of security and data protection possible. So for example, in NIMSI's response, the statement that NIMSI released, they had said things like, we have the highest level of certification in terms of data security. And when I saw that, I laughed, because let me demonstrate what that apparently means. So I'm in this your complex at Channels TV, and I've kept and there are some valuables that have been kept within Channels TV. And then I saw some of those valuables in the open market or on the street of Abuja, and I now came out and said, what are these valuables doing on the street of Abuja? They are supposed to be kept in the premises of Channels TV. Then Channels TV releases a statement to say that, we have the highest security door. The door that we use is the best in the world. The gate that leads to our premises is the best gate in the world. It has the highest security component. But how does that address the issue that data that is supposed to be here is found on the street of Abuja? You should be asking yourself, if we have the highest security architecture, we should be asking ourselves, how did those data make their way to those websites? They are not authorized. Right. And it is shocking. It's not a case of you have a few data. You have data, that's why they say any verify. You can verify anybody's data. As long as they have a NIN with the National Identity Management Commission, you will be able to get their NIN slip that has home address, including of public officials. All right, Mr. With the way that is poverty, hunger in Nigeria today. Okay, I'm with you.
Pardon me. Absolutely. So that means the president's information you can get it for 100 naira, or at least at that point you could have gotten it for 100 naira on that website. The vice president.
That's what it means.
The Senate president and the rest.
That's what it means.
Well, as you said, NIMSI in that response said that the commission's infrastructure meets the stringent ISO 27001 2013 Information Security Management System Standard, with annual recertification and strict compliance with the Nigeria Data Protection Law. NIMSI also, referenced some other websites, idfinder.com.ng, verify.ng, championtech.com.ng, trustyonline.com, and of course, any verify. But a lot of people remember that this started with Express Verify some months ago, and it looked like nothing significant was done. And I just wanted to paint the picture saying that the president's information is there, the vice president's information is there. If we don't want to say, okay, everyday Nigerians matter, but understanding that you can actually get the information of anybody as high as the president should get this message to hit home. For a lot of people, they're saying, so what can I do? I have trusted these people. I have made myself vulnerable to them. See where it has ended me. Anybody can get my information. I mean, think about it, for 100 naira. You can't even buy a drink for 100 naira, literally, but you can get the information of somebody for 100 naira. So for those Nigerians who feel vulnerable, who feel there's been a breach of trust here, and it's diabolical, I must say, what options are available to us?
Yeah, so when it comes to data protection and security, I think the first... there are different layers of responsibility. There is also what we call individual responsibility. In other words, as an individual, you also have to be very deliberate in terms of protecting yourself. But the data breach that we are speaking about, there is to be honest, there is nothing an individual could have done in that context, because you gave your data to government and you trusted that government was going to be able to protect those data. This type of breach, because there are other type of breaches. For example, the one with the loan shark was also very, very common. In that one, it's about individual responsibility, because if you didn't approach the loan sharks, if you didn't give them access to the contacts on your phone, they will not have those information. But in this case, you are totally powerless in the process. It's the people that are supposed to be custodian of those data that are failed in their responsibility to protect those data. And I must quickly add that this is a national level conversation. It's an ecosystem level conversation. That's why I said this is beyond NIMSI. This is not just about NIMSI. There is a culture of data abuse in Nigeria. There is a culture of data impunity in Nigeria, and every single data custodian is potentially guilty of this, not just even from the side of government, including from the side of private actors. But our own responsibility as a civil society organization is to hold government accountable, so that if government is held accountable, they can demonstrate and show leadership in how some of these things should be done. And let me quickly also add that, as a matter of fact, when the Express Verify case happened, we reached out to all concerned entities. We didn't make noise of it. We didn't go to the press about it, because we trusted that they would do the right thing and address it. But when nothing significant has been done, and we found out that there is another entity doing the same thing, then we thought that it is better if we make this public, so that everybody will be alerted and know that we have a national emergency regarding data governance in Nigeria. Unfortunately, the Data Protection Commission is barely a year old, and I have it on good authority that there is even no budget for that commission for 2024. How does a commission protect us from things like this, where it is not even funded or resourced to be able to perform that responsibility? And I hope this experience will be an opportunity for us to address this concern, and also to empower the entities such as NIMSI, such as Data Protection Commission, or other entities that are responsible for protecting our data, because there is clearly a lack of awareness, a lack of understanding of what needs to be done. You had referenced in your question, you had referenced the fact that, can you please just give me 30 seconds to land? You had referenced NIMSI's. Yeah, thank you. You had referenced NIMSI's statement regarding how they have the highest standard of certification, ISO certification. And I say to you that our strength is defined by the weakest link amongst us. You can have the highest certification, but if you don't have the right data culture practices, if there are individuals within your organization who don't know that data of Nigeria is not something that should be operating in the open market, then there is a big problem. It's not about just getting some international certification. It's the culture that we have encouraged over the years, whereby somebody feels so confident to advertise and sell the data of Nigeria in the open market without any fear, without any consequences. These are the issues that we need to interrogate, not grandstanding about what level of certification we have.
It's mind-boggling, I must say. But I'm glad we're talking about this at the very highest level. Let's be clear now, who are those who are either remotely, directly responsible in this case? We're not indicting anybody, and if we are, Absolutely, because something needs to be done. But who are those people? Who are those MDAs that are either directly, indirectly, remotely responsible that we need to be asking those questions from?
All right. So for in this context, that will be all the MDAs that have asked Nigerians at one time or the other to provide data, especially biometric data. So in that case, we are looking at the Nigerian immigration. We are looking at the CBN, Nigerian immigration, that's for international passport. CBN, that's for BVN. We are looking at INEC, that's for the PVC. Of course, we are looking at NIMC, that's for the NIN. We are looking at which other organization? I mean, just all these organizations that have asked you to provide biometric data at one point or the other. But I also need to clarify between what we call foundational and functional identity. So there are some of those institutions that have collected from us what we call functional identity information. So functional is, information that were collected to provide us services like banking services, immigration services, even the PVCs, for example. But there are the foundational ones like NIMC, and I think that's why there's a lot of heat on NIMC, because foundational identity is literally who you are. It's your identity, is who you are. If somebody committed a crime with that identity and somehow was able to use maybe your fingerprint data and leave it on the crime scene, that crime will be traced to you. It won't matter whether you did it or not, because it is a foundational identity. If your ATM card was used to commit a crime, you might be able to prove that, oh, somebody stole my ATM card and used it. But if your foundational identity is used to commit a crime, there is no escaping for you. You cannot escape it, because that thing is traced to your entire existence. So these organizations or these institutions are very important, but I think NIMC is the most important of all of them, and probably the National Population Commission. But because the National Population Commission is yet to conduct census using digital or biometric data, we are not really paying attention to them. But NIMC is the foundational identity custodian. And I honestly think our advocacy is not focused on making NIMC look bad. Our advocacy is focused in ensuring that NIMC rise up to the occasion and do its job as adequately as it should do it.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Adeboye Adegoke. He's the Senior Manager, Grants and Programs Strategy Paradigm Initiative. Thank you so much for your time on the morning brief, and I hope that all the MDAs and everyone involved should take this matter very seriously, because giving out data is not an option, should not be an option. Nigerians should not be vulnerable and suffer for things like this. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll go on a very short break, but we have more for you on the morning brief, so stay where you are.
downward trend, I must speak, in the last 6 months. But again, that's why we were sending people out now just to do rapid assessment. The assessment is that, you have some experts who go to the states, assess their capabilities to manage the situation, what gaps they have, what facets they have, and that kind of thing. Based on that, we determine how to assist. But meanwhile, we've sent out materials to different states involving including what they need to use, IV fluids for people having diarrhea, what they use to test rapid test kits, and I think the minister too is talking about to provide again the necessary vaccines for cholera vaccines distributed to various, but each state again has to be responsible for their activities. We need to address the issue of prevention now. It's key. Now what we do, okay, the season, when it's going to start, and when the season goes down. From the time it goes down to the next time you expect it, you start these preventing activities. Public health is key because now deal with population health. Anything can happen, can wipe out so many people. We don't pray for it if public health is not addressed. And you can't have good public health issues. You have to address the issue of water, the issue of sanitation, the issue of waste disposal. These are not the purview of the health sector. But again, that's why now we're talking on one health issues. The health sector, the environment, and the agri need to work together, water resources, to be able to effectively provide for our people. And policies must be aligned. Activities must be aligned. That's the way we are going now, nationally and statewide. That's what we are propagating now.
That's where we're at right now. So for one more day, we find out why Nigeria is still battling with what the WHO has called a disease of poverty, cholera. In 2024, the death toll keeps rising, and those are the ones that are confirmed or reported officially. One wonders what's happening behind the scenes. So let's speak with an expert again this morning to equip you with the right information you need during these times. We're joined by Dr. Alera Roberts. She's an associate professor of public health, College of Medicine, Unilag, and past vice president, Association of Public Health Physicians of Nigeria, Lagos chapter. She's right here with us in our Lagos studio. Good morning, madam.
Good morning. Nice to have you here again.
Here we are again.
I know.
This time, disease of poverty. And I know that alone just shocks you. But again, when you look at the indices, it's maybe not shocking. But we're in 2024. We expected that we'll have gone ahead of all of this, especially because COVID-19 came and said it's prepared our health system to fight, others. But here we are right now. But let's get a general sense of how you are internalizing this as a public health personnel before we talk about the whys, the whats, and the rest.
It's very difficult to say at this point how any one of us as public health physicians would be internalizing this, because it's so painful to have a situation where we're saying, I told you so.
Right.
Because this is essentially what the situation is. When we were dealing with, let's go back to Ebola, 2014, 10 years ago. It exposed gaps in our health system, and we had the opportunities which we took to address some of those gaps. And I'm going to say a big shout out here to the army of epidemiologists, field epidemiologists and laboratory technicians we had, who with their work on polio eradication, can you see how everything gets linked? Right. On polio eradication, were able to help us with that 93-day wonder of Ebola, and we continued along that line. The health sector continued along that line to strengthen parts of the health sector to be able to deal with such challenges, because invariably the challenges will continue to come. That we know. What are you going to do about it? You cannot tell me that you are living in a house, they say armed robbers are on the rampage. You have a window that has not been fixed, and then you still don't fix it. And then you start complaining, armed robbers broke into my house. People will ask you questions. And that's exactly what we've done. We rolled on from Ebola, COVID came, we again took the opportunity, we kept calling and shouting and took the opportunity to ramp up those gaps in the health sector. And the major gap we have is access, universal access to care. That is the major gap. Now, the DG, I was just listening to him shortly before we came on, and he said something that's very key. Many of these things are outside of the health sector. So let's take cholera case in point. Water supply. Is that doctors and nurses, physiotherapists, pharmacists? No. Water supply is critical. Access to clean water is critical. Access to knowledge of what to do in terms of sanitation is critical. You cannot have a situation where you are living in a place where people are defecating into the same water that you are collecting to cook food, wash plates, and you tell me that you have an adequate water supply. And yet, with all the urban slums you see around us in Lagos, that's what we are seeing.
And the government has said that, tiger nut sellers, particularly the ones that are not regulated on the streets, are partly responsible for this. And it ties to the point you're making. They use water to make the tiger nut. Where did they get the water from?
Good question.
What process did they go through? Who's even deciding whether or not they are producing this in a clean environment? So we really need to tackle this from the base. And you talked about access to healthcare. It's one thing to get infected. It's another thing to seek treatment and to have that treatment close by.
Exactly. So this is a typical example because people underestimate the speed with which a cholera episode with dehydration can kill an adult. And I'm sorry to use you as an example, but my students are so used to this. Sir, please be upstanding for 1 second.
Oh, absolutely.
Look at a well-built, robust, healthy, young male adult. God forbid, sir. Please, you may be seated.
Oh, I can sit now?
Yes, you can.
Oh, I thought I was going to stand.
I just needed everybody to see the robustness of this healthy young male adult. Young male adult in his income-generating years. God forbid evil, cholera epidemic. Number one, he won't survive. Number two, he'll be dead within 24 to 48 hours. Because in the first 24 hours, he'll need to put away 8 bottles.
That's a hypothetical person we're talking about.
Hypothetical.
Yeah, no.
Very allegedly hypothetical. Not 8 bottles like this. Somebody who is vomiting in 24 hours. Can you put away 8 bottles of this as you are now?
Just this nicely.
Thank you very much. By the time you've done 2.5, you are like, that's it. I don't need water again until next week, Monday. And that is what people do not take into consideration. The speed with which he will need to get access, the person would need to get access to adequate care that can put in an intravenous line. There's peripheral vein collapse. Do you understand? Now, we've all gone to parties, we've come back, and the next day we've had a bit of a tummy, and we are like, oh my goodness, and then you go to the loo 2, 3, 4 times, and you're all right. That's how it starts. And we're like, oh, done this, been there, done that. I know how to handle this. You do not.
So at what point do you know how to handle?
You don't.
At what point?
There's a cholera epidemic going on. If anybody around you has a funny tummy and has started stooling and vomiting, the time to go to hospital was 2 hours ago.
So Doc, water supply, potable water supply is really at the heart of this, the management of this epidemic. But for a lot of people, they provide their own water pretty much in this country. But some governments believe that the provision of public water, in communities, is their own definition of water supply, sadly so. Is that sufficient to help manage this public health emergency, which appears to be the next one?
It's a very good question you are asking. So, when we look at what is going on there, the question is that here is a water carrier collecting water from essentially a public tap. That water would have come through the system. At some point in the system, it needs to have been chlorinated. You remember that trip you made in primary school to Iju Water Works, where they showed you the 4 tanks and they showed you the chlorination process? Well, my cousin showed me an article 2 days ago. It's costing 17 million naira to clear 1 container of chlorinated tablets.
In Nigeria?
17 million naira.
Yes, sir, in Nigeria.
What's the size of the container?
40-foot container. So now, what is the quality of water coming out of that tap?
So the back of the tap, you know.
Thank you very much.
Infested by algae, I believe.
Oh. So this is what we are talking about. Now, let's even give the government its due. It provides public water supply in communities that it knows about. One of the things we have seen in the recent 2 administrations is that there's been this upsurge of unrecognized urban areas, peri-urban slums, we call them. People just flooding into Lagos State. And I think the now DG governor of NCDC, who was the then Commissioner of Health, was talking about 100,000 people coming into Lagos on a daily basis who need water, sanitation, accommodation, education, who are unregistered. They are not captured on any database, so their own private details are not available for 100 naira. Nobody knows who they are or where they're living. Is there going to be a water supply there? Is there going to be electricity? Is there going to be anything that will enable them to take care of themselves? Are there going to be primary health care centers there that are staffed, equipped? These are the unrecognized peri-urban and urban slums that we're talking about. Forget that famous one by the University of Lagos.
Well, which also brings me to my next question. We talked about chlorinating or sanitizing public tanks, but as individuals, for us, we provide our own water ourselves. Should we also be thinking about sanitizing our tanks also as individuals? And how often should that be? For anyone listening right now, who I'm sure some people don't even know, have never brought down those tanks. They just stay up there for many, many years. How often should these tanks be sanitized? It's
a bit difficult to say how often. I don't think there's a blanket rule. I would certainly do it once a quarter. I do mine once a quarter, but that's because my household is small. Our use is a little, is not so much. But because of that, like you quite rightly said, algae could grow. And then, of course, in the rainy season, you may want to do it a bit more frequently. More importantly is at the point of use, what kind of water are you using and where does it come from? And what do you do? So right now is not the time to be drinking garri. Right now is the time to be eating eba. So that you boil the water very well before putting the garri inside it.
But you could boil the water for garri.
And
allow it
to cool down.
People who cannot do without garri. That's what
He's just speaking for himself. He can't do it.
Yeah, I own it. I love my garri once in a while.
Yeah. And then even then, be careful, even the ice blocks. Because you're not going to boil. And I hope you're not on Band-Aid electricity. That's
on bandit electricity.
So you're boiling the water that even goes into the ice trays to go into the freezer. So these are all things that you now have to think about. That what strata of the population, and notice my hands are going progressively down. Can do all that.
Can chlorinate.
Chlorinate, boil, disinfect, sanitize, and in this, all in the time frame of trying to even generate an income which you can use to pay your accommodation, electricity, transport to and from work, security, food. We didn't even talk about what. Did you say 3 tomatoes for 1,000 naira?
1,000 naira.
I heard you this morning and I thought I was still dreaming.
No, since last week, I believe, early last week, 3 tomatoes for 1,000 naira. About 5 of the bell pepper for 1,000 naira as well.
So we're not even getting people eating well enough to get enough antioxidants and elements into their body to keep their immune status at a healthy level.
But don't be too alarmed. I think it's just the area. Some areas you get 3, but some you get up to 10.
But you know, Doc, let's revisit, you know, what the Lagos State government is reporting to be the cause of the outbreak here. And, you know, that comes with a number of implications that I want you to speak to, which is the monitoring of the Food and Drugs Agency. Is this a matter of inadequate staff, which NAFDAC has consistently repeated, and or has NAFDAC been caught napping somewhere there in terms of the monitoring of these foods and drinks?
Sadly, it is. It is, in the sense that, there's inadequate staff. I'm sorry. The truth of the matter is, and I'm ready to stand anywhere and say it, the civil service simply doesn't pay enough to maintain the quality of staff needed to carry out these kind of processes. And this is across board. NAFDAC as part of it. I'm sorry, and that's just the truth of the matter. Because when you look at what the average civil servant, I'm not talking about those who have had to go abroad and supplement their local income with foreign exchange, those of us that are here. So then the second thing is that you're asking them to monitor, so let's practicalize it. You're asking them to monitor food vendors and what they do in the... So I live in Etiosa local government, but the area I've been given to supervise is
Ikorodu.
Let's even be nearby, Koshofe.
Right.
I'm expected, because this is my daily duties or my schedule of duties according to the Nigerian Gazette, I'm expected to transport myself from my house to my place of work, which will now be Koshofe local government, and go around and supervise and see what they're doing. So, of course, I create a register. Who are the food vendors in this area? I have them listed by name and date and address. The ones that are registered, because you pay for registration. So the woman who was retrenched 2 weeks ago, who suddenly realizes that I can make kunu, I can make zobo, I can be selling for my children to go to school, she's not going to be registered. I'm not going to supervise.
So that's a huge gap then. And we spoke with NCDC last week, right? He was seated right here and he showed us this chart. And I saw on it that we're actually not at the peak just yet.
No.
July, August.
Thank you.
Is the peak.
Yes.
I had a lot, it was like, it sent a shockwave down my spine to think that this is even just like the beginning of it. It may get worse July, August. I know that there are challenges with vaccine. You talk about chlorine. It's tough to even clear chlorine at the border. We understand that we don't have enough vaccines. Whether or not people even want to take the vaccines is another thing entirely. So if we're not at the peak yet, what must we do such that what we'll get to the peak of is the peak of prevention, not the peak of the epidemic itself?
There's a lot that needs to happen in terms of curbing the epidemic. And the preventive practices need to go into place now. So we do need to look at that water supply issue. We do need to look at sanitation. We do need to keep doing what we're doing now, creating awareness and educating people. It's too late for a lot of primary school children because they're going to go on holidays in another 2-3 weeks. So that captive audience where we can be teaching children hand washing and water supply, we're not going to have in another 2-3 weeks. They're not going to be in school. So we need to continue this education and awareness, making people knowledgeable about their sanitation and refuse practices. And all this is out of the health sector. A doctor cannot come and be teaching you how to dispose of your refuse. You won't even listen because you need to have first been in the doctor's office sick for the doctor to be talking to you. We want to be talking to them before they even get to the hospital. So people need to be very, very, very knowledgeable about safe sanitation practices. And having said all this, big English, technical jargon, how do we practicalize it? When you now have people who will not even pay the PSP, I'm talking Lagos State now, the private, is it private sector?
Something like that.
Something, private sanitation, whatever. PSP.
Providers.
Yes, providers. Loma. All these things come at a cost. When I'm looking for, okay, did you say 10 tomatoes for 1,000 naira? You tell me that's 10 tomatoes or pay Loma. What am I going to do? My children are crying with hunger. What am I honestly going to do? How do I practicalize this? So you've got the flies, you've got the refuse waste seeping into the groundwater, where I've dug a shallow well to draw water to cook and clean with. You've got people defecating openly
I was going to
everywhere.
say that, because we used to have Wooly, then they would check if you have
Are you
your...
paying them enough salary to stay in the job? All these things are gazetted. All these, there are job openings. Do you want to come? There are job openings everywhere.
I'm doing my bit here, and I love
Doc,
the bit.
as far as this next public health emergency, you've talked about the preventive aspect, and it seems as if Nigeria has failed on that. But let's look at treatment. I was chatting with one of the government advisors in Abia State over the weekend, and she provided assurance that there were rapid diagnostics kits in all of the local government areas. I wonder how plausible that is. But if that were the case, from the point of view of a public health physician, are you confident that in all 774 local government areas and all primary health care centers, there is a level of preparedness that is guaranteed to address this cholera outbreak, which is a critical question, Doc?
I'm laughing. You know very well that I am supremely confident there is not. There is not. I can point to local governments in Lagos, the first states of Nigeria, that do not have. Look at this on the screen. Where do we get this from? Is it the infusion fluid we're talking about? Is it the giving sets? Do you realize the giving set, production and availability of the giving set is a problem? Is it the cannulae that we need? Considering that the ages that are most susceptible are the under 5s and over 65s that have tiny, tiny veins. Is it the trained personnel who can put... I cannot remember how to put in a cannula. I'm going to rely on those lovely young doctors and nurses just coming out of school who have done so many, they are proficient at it. Where are they? Then you want to tell me 700 and... Let's start with 74 local government areas first. I'm supremely confident it is not possible. Let's even look at that issue that the DG raised about oral vaccination. It's oral. There's no problem about taking it. If you ask a mother to give it to her child at the immunization dates, 6 weeks, they will do so happily. Anything, my child must not die. It is not my portion to bury my child. The world is looking at producing 50 million doses for 2024 for the global stockpile. How many Nigerians are we? Where will 50 million doses go in one country? That's even assuming WHO and Gavi give us everything. It's still nothing. Drop in the ocean. So we're still going to have to be looking at the wider preventive measures. And we're already being caught napping.
All right. So since we do not seem to have help from anywhere, not from government, from other sectors,
we must
protecting
have help from
ourselves.
Government.
Well,
we must have
point,
help. We must hold government accountable to their duties. But we must have help from government.
So for the sake of creating awareness, let's talk about some of these serious symptoms. What do you need to see to rush to the hospital? And then, even after that, how can you prevent cholera from reaching you?
That's a fantastic question. The problem with cholera is that it's an effortless, what we call an effortless rice water diarrhea. You don't get those cramps that you get with gastroenteritis from bad food, for example, party food. From the first, at least the second episode, start going to hospital. Because the problem with the cholera is that it attacks the lining of the intestine. and makes, so that line, it loses its integrity, and it means everything in the body is rushing into the intestine, filling the intestine and rushing out either upwards or downwards, effortlessly. So the minute you see one episode, before it gets to the second and third, and those can come in rapid succession, and that is the danger. Please get to a health center that has the capacity to put in a cannula, because the second danger is that you get so dehydrated, all the veins collapse. Then we can't even it's so difficult to put in a cannula. And we need to start rushing in the fluid. So there's no time to waste. While we are sitting here creating awareness, if anybody in your house, your loved one, your neighbor is having that kind of problem, please find any means. And then make sure that the feces and the vomiters is disposed of properly, covered up, buried. You use what's that solution that hypochlorite solution that we used to use, and wash everything clean so that everywhere becomes clean. Because the next thing you don't want are flies settling on it and carrying it to food nearby and whatnot, utensils, cooking utensils there. You don't want that. So that level of prevention at the individual, family, and community level is imperative. It needs to start now. Start cleaning your compounds, your households. Start cleaning up. Flies are your enemy. Open defecation is your enemy. Don't encourage it. Wow.
There's a lot to soak in, and I do hope that it's hitting home. Because the tendency to feel, oh, this is a disease of the poor. It's for the rural areas, the slums, right? And just think it will never get to the ones who are, well-to-do. But if you've seen water supply of late and where you're getting your water from and what's happening in your tank, then you may need to think again. So you said government must show up.
Yes.
Whether or not they like it. This is their responsibility.
Must be, yes.
So let's
we're talking water supply, we're talking works, and we're talking refuse sanitation, we're talking education. Even before we get to the health sector, we're talking about government addressing what we call the social determinants of health. That's what we're talking about. Even transportation is involved.
I want us to break it down properly, because there's a tendency for people to hide behind government. So the state governments are hiding behind federal government, thinking, oh, they're talking to federal government. Then the local governments are hiding behind the state governments and are hiding behind the federal government.
And that's been
it's not really penetrating. So let's speak to them. How would you rate, for example, the Federal Ministry of Health, the State's Ministry of Health, the PHCs? How would you rate them?
Okay, I'm going to flip it, because I always start from the individual.
Oh, right.
So what am I going to do? Where do I go? Where is my nearest PHC? And I remember from COVID, I kept asking people, do you know where your nearest PHC is and who your medical officer of health for your adubo, your neighborhood?
In case of emergency. In
case of emergency? This is something you just need to know. So for me, I want to know where my PHC is. Who is there? Is it manned? Okay, if mine is not manned, how will I get to the nearest one that is manned? I want to know where I am getting my water supply from. How can I? So there's a quick trick that we learned, in school. And I keep telling people, water in plastic exposed to the sun for 24 hours can be sterilized. So gathering water in plastic like this, or your nylon bags or whatever, and putting it on your rooftop, let sun beat it for 24 hours, you've got it pretty much sterilized. So that is a start. So I have a habit, when we buy water, we leave it outside. I don't know where it came from. I can't guarantee.
But is it scientifically proven?
Oh, yes.
Fantastic. Oh, yes. So you don't need chlorine for that one?
No. I'm assuming it's been chlorinated, but no. At least the sunshine, the UV rays has done quite a lot of work there. So it's one step. This is assuming you don't have the gas and electricity to be boiling.
But the concerns about plastics again, the plastic.
Sorry, sir. The plastic isn't going to kill you in 24 hours.
Right. So it's.
I'm sorry. You've got to weigh your pros and cons.
Okay.
You've got to weigh your pros and cons.
So it goes back to government properly disposing of the plastic when you're done with it.
With it, yes.
No, it's even having,
it's even having.
Plastic
I should not have
melt.
to have safe water in a plastic bottle. I grew up drinking tap water.
From your home?
Yes, in Lagos.
But we don't have that. We don't have that anymore.
Thank you. You understand. I grew up hearing my mother call the water company on, yes, she had one of the 500,000 NITEL lines. Oh, wow. And she could call that, water stopped, oh. What is going on? Ma, sorry, ma, we are maintaining the... This was Lagos, 60s and 70s. Anyway, let's not digress. So, sorry, where was I? At the individual level. Yeah. So that's what I need to know. Then at the PHC level, that's why I'm going to call the local government chairman into account. Are you funding the primary health care centers and making sure they have what they need? Because if at least the primary health care centers can deliver that first 24 hours of care, somebody has a hope.
Surviving it.
Yes. And it's not just putting several cartons of IV fluid and whatnot. It's having the personnel, trained personnel, who can recognize and initiate treatment. Before we even get to the state government levels to say that, okay, are the state government hospitals ready for the onslaught? But ideally, this is something we can handle at that level. Are the local government chairmen ensuring that their local government areas are clean?
Right.
Refuse is not piled up in areas. Gutters are not overflowing. People are not misusing plastic and dumping it into channels and drains.
Or openly defecating.
Or openly defecating.
And you know,
Dr. Roberts,
just before you go, besides the tiger knot that was responsible, I want you to speak to the growing number of slums in Lagos and what the state government should be doing to manage public health in those areas.
It's very, very difficult, and this is one reason why when they say come and stand for state gubernatorial candidates, I said no, thank you, I can't do that job. It is exceedingly difficult. How do you stop people pouring into Lagos on a daily basis? And 90% of the people pouring into Lagos are looking for one thing. Shall I tell you what it is? Jobs. With jobs, they can access health care. During COVID, we had so many people coming into Lagos looking for health care. And you remember we had an oxygen crisis. How do you stop people coming into Lagos? How do you stop the rural-urban migration? You have to go back to the rural areas and address the problem from there. So how do you want a state governor in Lagos or Port Harcourt or Enugu or any of the big cities that offer hope? How do you want them to stop people coming?
Something to chew on. Well, the governors promised. In fact, they went and campaigned and said, we're going to resolve all of these things. So they have to put their thinking caps on. This is a challenge we have to resolve together, obviously. It's a conversation we need to have. But Dr. Cholera Roberts, we'd like to thank you so much for facilitating this conversation. We're glad we're having it, and we'll not stop equipping Nigerians with the information that they need. Dr. Roberts is Associate Professor of Public Health, College of Medicine, UNILAG, past Vice President, Association of Public Health. I'll have said former governorship aspirant.
No way.
He chose not to run. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Never.
This morning. Thank you for your time, madam.
Thank you so much for having me, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll go to break now, and when we return, this is a man that has been described as an encyclopedia. You may have come across his social media videos where he's telling you senators from different parts of the United States and Nigeria and other things. He joins us next on the show. Stay with us.
So, were you wowed? If you were, we're just getting started. Whether it's sports, whether it's politics, or even the traditional institution, our guest today is well versed in that knowledge. Also, if you're low on righteousness, If you're a unwilling soul to be won, he's going to come after you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome with us Mr. Randy Aka. Welcome to the program.
It's a pleasure being here.
Oh, the pleasure is ours.
Phenomenal. The phenomenal Mr. Kayode, Auntie Bukola, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. So, how do you do it? Storing all of that knowledge, first of all. And then when we were growing up, was there anything that pointed to you having such expansive brain capacity?
Thank you once again for being here. Let me not go into the details of my growing up because it's a story for another time. I did something related to medicals, but I should have known if I had proper counseling because I was in the press club even as a science student. I thought I would be a doctor, but I should have done law or something if I had the opportunity to. But I didn't really think this was all a big deal. This video started as a coincidence. A colleague, a friend of mine was reciting state and capital, and they were having issues reciting the states and capital. And I was like, I can tell you the governors of those states, and they would, no, that's not possible. So we did the first video and posted online, and the feedback was massive. So it was then I began to see that really, maybe I should do this thing. So when I got responses from people, so I felt like maybe this is something that a lot of persons do not know or people find interesting. So I have always known it. Politics have been something, humanity has been something I've been passionate about, and leadership. So I pay so much interest to it. So that was how we came about these videos. And then they said, okay, let's go to the US. Let's try this, let's try that. And today we have all those. So it started as a joke, not an intention to put out content like that.
So do you sit down, and pick a topic and study, and then you store the knowledge, or how do you do it?
Most times it is my friends, the people. If you hear the voices at the background and some persons who you see, they tell me, can you tell us this? Would you be able to tell? Okay, I said, okay, let's try. Sometimes we may miss one or two, but then again, there is no intentional preparation for it.
You just have it.
I think what she's trying to say is, I mean, before these questions come, do you kind of memorize? Do you have to go to this topic, or it's politics you want to talk about, so you memorize it? I'm speaking as someone who knows how to memorize easily. I mean, I could read a full book and I'll tell you what it is. But I'm saying, is that how you also started yours? Was that how you learned to begin all of this?
Yes, to an extent, and no, most of them are not planned. Residual knowledge comes in, but then again, if I know that we want to do something, I might look in the news. The person who was there, is he still there, and that kind of thing. Yes, so that revision must always come handy once in a while.
Wow.
So I came across your content over the weekend.
Yes, sir.
And I realized that I'd spent 30 minutes just going through your content, and I'm like, this is wrong, Kayode, you need to repent. So I found this comment on your page, and this is one of your users, your followers, @thereal_aim, saying, honestly, I'm waiting for an interview, for you to have an interview, which is why we're having this. I really want to know, if not all, but little about you. How do you learn and memorize these things? You're amazing. And I think you responded with some emojis. So a lot of people want to understand how your brain works. So do you, and this is help us, do you see those things? Because we're going to ask you some of those questions.
Yes,
so do you see it and you read it out, or how does your brain work? That's what I want to know. How do you envision those answers and pull them out?
Because there's a difference between there's a difference between when you memorize just to remember something, or when you quite understand. They're two different things.
Okay, thank you very much for that question. And from her introduction, she said something about sports and politics and that. Maybe not completely. If you ask me so much about sports, it will be to memorize, to understand. It's just for, not knowledge purposes. But the core of what this is about is my interest in leadership. That is why it sticks. I'm interested I have a passion for Nigeria. And if you listen to even the speakers that just spoke, Dr. Roberts, Dr. Jide on cholera, we're talking about NIMSI and all of that, you would find out that Nigeria has an existential problem with leadership. It all boils down to leadership. So I'm always interested in who is doing what where and how do we hold these persons accountable, because they have a means of recycling themselves. The current president was a state governor. He was a senator at some point. The vice president was a senator. So it is that interest in leadership that makes me, so it is more political than maybe other aspects. There are fields you might take me to when we come about engineering, spacecraft and all of that. I won't know so much about that. If I want to learn, I will need to go and read and understand. But I find out that politics and leadership comes easily and naturally. And then when I just find something, if you tell me this, if I see it on Channel TV, I see news flash, this is the acting governor of this, it is very difficult for me to forget who it sticks, because I'm interested in following up on what he will do and where he's headed and how what he does affects the lives of people under his.
May I can't wait.
It looks like you have everyone's data. I hope nobody is paying you 100 naira for collecting our data.
In fact,
but how have you been able to channel this into leadership or into something tangible to make a difference?
I couldn't hold my excitement when I saw Mr. Kayode's. Thank you once again for having me. It is a dream come true, because it's almost like, you know, when you continuously see comments, and even on my way here, somebody sees you, okay, this guy, you know this thing. They will tell you, forget about Nigeria, travel out. You cannot make money from this thing. This does not. And I'm like, no, there should be a way of rewarding. It's not even about me. Intellectuals or whatever, children that are out of school, there are so many of them. So what I'm trying to do is I go out on my own basis, reach out to schools to take, train on how to get retentive memory, and then build the culture of patriotism and interest in government, your civic education, civic rights, voter, your responsibilities to the nation, and how the actions of these people are mentioning affect and impact your life directly. So a lot of Nigerians do not like to pay attention to certain things. I was watching a program one time, or a video, somebody was here and was asked who is the IG of police, and somebody said no, and people started tagging me because I had done a video mentioning IGs of police since 1999, and I said it's true. Some Nigerians really will ask you, why should I know the IG of police? How many times have I called the police? Did they respond positively or responsibly? Nigerians do not see a need to know these kind of things. That is why you see lots of comments under my page. They're like, go and learn tech. Some person will tell you, go and do Yahoo. As profane as it may sound, they will tell you, you can't earn money from this. But I still think that it is important. The resources, I'm doing it on my own, but with time, it will grow into something, better, to make people understand that, look, our lives are dependent on government. This is what Dr. Roberts was saying. You asked her, what should she do? She said, we must hold government accountable. Nobody can do it on their own. The actions of these persons affect, we're talking about tomato 3 or 4 or whatever it is, a bag of rice from 15 to 80,000 naira. If we don't pay attention to these things, the painful part about Nigeria is that there is no rock bottom. The fact that it is this bad does not mean it will not get worse. It cannot get worse.
Now I'm wondering if we're talking to a comedian or a public
politician. He's actually, one of the things you would appreciate about him is the fact that he's not just, his content is not just content. He calls himself an advocate for a new Nigeria. We want to get into your knowledge.
Yes.
We want to dig into your mind. I have a list of questions for you. So maybe we should start from the National Assembly. Who is the senator representing, I can ask, right?
Please do.
Akwa Ibom South.
Akwa Ibom South, that is Senator Akpanekong Samson. Pardon me, I may not know their senatorial districts for all others, but Akwa Ibom South is Akpanekong Samson, Northwest is the Senate President Gospel Bodak.
I only asked you one.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so who is the senator representing Ogun West?
Ogun West should be Senator Adiola Solomon Olamilekan. He used to represent Lagos East, and now he's representing Lagos West. The other ones are Senator Otumba Gbenga Janela and Senator Salisu Afolabi.
We asked you.
Okay.
You're showing off.
You're showing off. What is my middle name?
Your middle name?
Okay.
I will have to say.
No, say it now. No, you must say it too.
I will tell you that, but I want to make sure that I first win your soul to Christ. You know there are many aspects of this
thing. My soul has been won to Christ already.
So let's ask randomly. Senator representing Plateau Central.
Plateau Central should be Senator Pam Dachungiwa. The senators from Plateau are Dicket Pam Dachungiwa and Senator Simon Bakula Long, but I know Simon Bakula Long is Plateau South. Dicket Plank should be Central, and Pam Dachungiwa should be North. I hope I'm
not even fact checking you, because I really, at this point, I don't care. You broke yourself. So, how many people can you mention in Channels Television that you know in Channels Television?
In Channels Television, I would mention, of course, the very, very delectable, quintessential Auntie Bukola Kuka. She used to be Bukola. I used to know her as Auntie Bukola Samuel Wemimo when she was doing fireworks on TVC and all of that. And I think her birthday is sometime in April 6th or 7th, I don't know. And then I know Uncle
I'm beginning to suspect. What's this about?
Well, he just missed it by 1 day. April 7th.
7th, yes.
He said 6th or 7th.
6th or 7th, yeah.
He said 6th or 7th.
I saw a video of you, one of your birthdays, you were in Tanzania, you did a dance. So that was how it stuck. Kayode, I think your birthday is October 22nd or something, sometime in October. It should be October 22nd.
You know our birthdays.
And then I know...
Is it 22nd? Really?
Okay, no, I don't want anybody to have this information.
Go on. I told you earlier, he's collecting 100 naira for this thing. Okay.
So, of course, the anti-Yomi Otaigbe, of course, I listen to the news and, you know, you just love to hear those names, and it's beautiful to see them. Auntie Anne, those days, Auntie Mokwe Ogun, Chamberlain Oso, Amarachi Ubani, Ijoma Onyato, almost every beautiful.
Let's come back. I don't want to be
Okay, let's do this. Yeah. Past presidents of Nigeria from 1960.
From 1960, sorry.
You need the water.
Our first premier in 1960 was Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, and the Governor General and then President Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe. There was a coup in 1996 that brought in Major General Agui Ironsi in January, but it was short-lived. He was then succeeded by General Yakubu Gowon, who was there from then through the civil war until 1975. A coup took him out that brought Murtala Ramat Mohammed from Kano. He died in a coup in 1976. In 1976, and then came President General Obasanjo as the military head of state. He was there until 1979, where he brought us back to the Second Republic. President Shehu Shagari. Shagari was there until he started losing, support, and another who toppled him. General Buhari came in, became head of government, and he was toppled in 1985. President General Babangida was there from 1985 until 1993. Tried ill-fated Third Republic. The elections of 1993. June 12th, as we all know it. Then interim government of the late N.S. Olade Ndeshonekon, he was removed in a bloodless coup. General Basha came in and was there from 1993 until 1998, where he also died. Then saw General Abdul Salam Alhaji Abubakar from Niger. He ushered us into the Fourth Republic.
You know the
President Obasanjo, and then to Yaradua, who unfortunately died in 2010, succeeded by his vice Jonathan, who then sought his own full term in 2011, lost a second term 2015 to President Buhari, and the incumbent president Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
But we would want to ask before you go,
please,
what course did you study in school?
I did basic medical science because I thought I would be a doctor, but I found out I was struggling and with all of that, and I wish now I could just go back to do even history or English or anything.
The beauty. Yeah. This is testament that what you're doing really matters. This is a reward for the work you're doing. You're an advocate for a new Nigeria. You're using your knowledge for good. You're even using it for evangelism. You mentioned local governments. Can we ask you about local governments?
Local government, yes. What?
Can you say the names of local governments in a state, for example?
In Kano, for instance.
Let's take Imo.
Local governments will include Mbise, Olu, Owerri West also, and yes, most of those Mbise, yes, Mbitolu. I don't know many of the local governments at that level, partly because to be honest with you, Uncle Kayode, this local government system in Nigeria is almost not effective. So they are just, you see what is happening with, you can remove chairmen and put caretaker chairmen. They are not viable. That is what I'm trying to say. Until we have a federal system where the federating units are working, local government chairmen are just appendages and are at the mercy of their governors who, distribute palliatives for them to go and spend. And if we don't fix that, you saw, Dr. Roberts told you, are you funding the PAC? How much is he even collecting? They are shouting of autonomy.
Who is the governor of Katsina?
Katsina State, that is Umaru Diko Rada.
Who is the governor of Benue?
Benue State, that is Reverend Hyacinth Yomimalia from Vandikia local government.
Who is the senator representing Benue South?
Benue, do they have Benue South?
Sorry.
Yes, Senator, I think Senator Abba Patrick Moro, the Senate Minority Leader, former Minister for Interior. There is Senator Titus Startingizam and Senator Odinde Memsai Manda.
Well done, Kano. So what are the three
senators in Kano? Rufai Hanga, the Deputy Senate President Barau Jibrin is from Kano North, and then there is Senator Kawu Samaila.
How much will dollar be tomorrow?
We are praying that it should come down in the name of Jesus Christ. But by tomorrow, call me.
You feel like you're oppressing all of the other people. Do you ever feel like you're proud?
I don't even feel like I know anything because I haven't seen that kind of reward. I mean, it's just basic knowledge, and then it doesn't feel special to me. But I hope that it does, and it makes that kind of
that is what has brought you on the stage, and we advise that you keep doing what you're doing. There's a lot of people commenting actually. This person said Peter Aka definitely has a very high brain power. His retentive memory is unequal. I respect his deep understanding of current affairs in Nigerian politics.
Yes.
I just want to say that you tension a lot of us.
We do too.
We feel that we don't know anything. But I'm glad you're channeling it in the right direction, and I just hope that children can learn and get this retentive memory. It's very important.
And we hope that your vision for a new Nigeria will be what we will all be witnesses to in our lifetime.
Amen. I'm very grateful. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. Yeah, it's just a round of applause.
Absolutely.
All right.
What a show it's been to open the week, and the beautiful ones have been born. Randy Aka is testament to that. So we'll continue our search for more beautiful ones through the week. Join us again tomorrow. I'm Bukola Koka.
All right, thank you guys for joining us and keeping it all the time. But my name is Anwar. Definitely see you again tomorrow.
His handle is at Randy Peters with a Z across social media. If you want more interest on it, go there. By the way, I know what show is coming up next. It's Sunrise Daily.
Sunrise Daily.
Right here on Channels Television. I'm
and stay safe.
Goodbye.